Hey friends, I would like to welcome you to our video series in which we are going to build agents step by step using Microsoft Agent Framework. Before we start today, I hope you have gone through my previous video, which we have done yesterday. And the first video of this series is basically giving you introduction about Microsoft Agent Framework, why it is required, and how it is different than the other frameworks which are available in the market. Also, how exactly Microsoft Agent Framework is going to be there for future instead of semantic kernel and autogen is also have explained in the previous video. So if you have not seen that video, I strongly recommend you to go through that video first. The link of that video is available in this particular corner. And if you've already seen that video and now it's the time you want to develop agents using Microsoft Agent Framework, let's get started with that without wasting any time. Now, in order to deal with the agents, first of all, we are going to go and create our project in Microsoft Foundry. For your kind of information, this is the website, which is ai.azure.com. And if you want to access this particular website, you need Azure subscription. As I mentioned in my previous video, that there are certain prerequisites which are required in order to do the practical labs of this particular course. So I suggest you that you have those prerequisites already done. You have an active Azure subscription, you have Azure CLI installed in your computer, you have Visual Studio Code with Python and pip so that you can install the dependencies and packages. And you also have a basic knowledge of Azure Cloud Fundamentals as well as some basics of Azure AI services. Now, if you already have all these things, let's get started with this by creating our first project in our Microsoft Foundry. Now, when I do this thing, there is a homepage of this particular Foundry where we have create an agent kind of a button. When I click on this, it's basically going to create my first project. I'm going to provide some kind of a meaningful name like this name dash some number dash proj. Also, I want to make sure one thing that when I'm creating a project, it's going to be created in the new resource group as well as it's going to be located in the specific Azure region. As you can see here, most of the Foundry recommendations are saying that you should use one of these regions to create your project, like either East US2 or Sweden Central. In my case, I'm going to go with East US2 as of now. If certain things will not work in East US2, I suggest you to go with Sweden Central, but one of them will surely work. I'm going to click on create, and this project creation is going to take approximately 1 or 2 minutes. So let's just wait for this. Okay, my project is created, and as you can see, the next step which they're asking me right now is deploy a model. So I'm going to deploy my model, which is going to be either GPT-4o or GPT-4o mini. Now, if you are also looking for this particular development, I suggest you to choose one of this model, either GPT-4o or GPT-4o mini, whichever is available in your subscription. So I'm choosing GPT-4o first. If this is available with the same region, I'll go with this. Otherwise, I'll go with GPT-4o mini. I'll click on confirm. Is it available in East US2? Yes, for me it's available. Also, make a note of this. When you're deploying a model in Foundry, you have a configuration here which is known as capacity. You can click on customize and you can change the capacity if you want. Minimum 50,000 tokens per minute capacity is what I suggest for this particular lab. So we are going to develop multiple agents, and that's why this kind of a bandwidth is something which is going to be required. So just make sure you have minimum 50,000 tokens per minute kind of a rate limit, which is specified here. I'm okay with all the configuration. I'm going to click on deploy. Within few seconds, my model is going to be deployed, and you can see directly it's taking me to one particular page, which is Agents Playground. Now, I'm sure you know how to create agents using Microsoft Azure Foundry. If you have not seen this thing earlier, or if you're seeing this thing first time, basically in that case, you can go through my this video, which is showing you how you can create agent in Azure AI Foundry. But as of now, we already know that thing. So I'm going into agent section, where it's going to show me the default agent which is created here, which is agent 138. Now, whatever is there is fine. This agent is not useful for me right now. It's just by default configured and created with this project. Also, I want you to see one thing, that if I click on model plus endpoints in the left side section, it's showing me my GPT-4o model, which I have deployed. So this is a model name, which is actually going to be very useful when you want to connect your project with your deployment model. So we are going to keep this name in mind. With this, it's time to move forward with our code. And in that, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. I have my Visual Studio Code installed in my computer with all the Python configurations which I need. What I'm going to do is I am going to clone my repository. Now let me show you one thing. Everyone who's planning to do these labs with me, This is a repository where we have created a base configuration of the sample actually. If you also want to develop this agents using Microsoft Agent Framework with me, then I suggest you to just go through this particular GitHub repository, and you can clone the repository and you can follow the same steps which I'm doing. So just note down this particular link, or I'm also going to make sure that I put this link in the description of this particular video so that you can use it. I'm copying this URL, and then I'll go to my Visual Studio Code. I will do Control Shift P. Remember, Control Shift P is going to open the command plate in which I'm going to execute a command which is git clone. In order to get the git clone command, you need to install Git in your computer. So make sure it is installed. Otherwise, you'll not get that. And then I'm going to paste the URL. Remember, there is one common mistake which people do is they click on clone from GitHub. No, you don't need to do this thing. You just do git clone and then you just paste the URL like I did, and then you hit enter. The moment you do this, it is going to ask you, would you like to open the repository? I'm going to say yes, open this, and it's actually going to show me the repository which is open inside this. Now, in my case, this is something which is already configured in my project somewhere in my computer, and that's the reason it's directly opening this here. Now, instead of this, suppose if you have a new project, like let's say I'm going to create a new window in my Visual Studio Code, and in this new video, if I do Control Shift Open, Control Shift P basically. And then if I click on git clone, and if I paste this repository, and if I try to hit enter, it's showing me that would you like to open the repository or open in the new window? Now both the options are actually available here. Now in our case, we can actually clone this thing in some different folder as well, or we can open this thing in the new window as well. So no matter if I do this, it's going to help me to open this particular one in the new window. So you can see in my case, this is my window where this project is configured, and this is a new window in which I really don't want to use it. So this is my repository, which is actually open in my computer right now. And once it is cloned successfully, in whichever folder you have created this, you can see that this repository is actually having multiple folders inside this. I have actually configured 4 different samples inside this one single repository. And this is what we are going to build right now, step by step. The first folder is actually having a name agent intro. In this, we are actually going to create some new agents, and we are also going to use some existing agents with that. Now, in order to do that, first of all, I want you to see that there is one file which is requirements.txt. This is the file which is basically going to have all the dependency packages of this particular lab environment. Now, in our case, because we want Microsoft Agent Framework, we need Agent Framework, Azure Identity for authentication and identity verification using AZ login. And we're also going to take a Python.NET environment, which is basically going to help me to configure my .env file, which I have already mentioned here inside this. So this is how it is. This is a requirement.txt. The first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my requirement.txt. I'm going to open this in integrated terminal. When you do this, it's going to open this folder in the terminal of this Visual Studio Code. And let me just close this extra things. And now in this particular folder where we are inside 01 agent intro, we have to fire one simple command. This command is basically going to configure some kind of a lab environment with this. Now, what commands you have to fire, you don't need to remember this thing. If you check here, somewhere inside my create new agent kind of a file, I have given you some instructions. Like in the first one, we are going to create Microsoft Foundry agent. And in order to do this thing, you have to execute these 3 commands. Now you can see the first command is Python -m venv, and then I'm giving a name of the environment, lab environment. Now, this is one command which is going to create a new folder, which is a virtual lab environment in your computer. Now, I want you to configure a virtual lab environment because we do not want any dependencies on the global deployment of your computer. So basically, inside this virtual lab environment, we will be able to install packages, and that's going to allow us to execute this particular application. Second thing is we have a command which is executing activate.ps1. Now, inside the same lab environment, you will find a folder called scripts, and inside the scripts you're going to get activate.ps1, which is actually a PowerShell scripts, which is enabling the execution of this lab environment. So I am just going to copy this, I'll paste it in my shell, and when I do this, it's going to take some time, and I think this is done. Yes. And now after this, the third command which we are going to execute is pip install, in which we are saying that you go to the requirement.txt file and you install all the dependencies. Now this basically has those three dependencies which we have mentioned. It's going to collect all the downloading packages and it's going to install that. This will take some time depending upon your internet speed and the configuration of your computer. I'll just wait for this to complete, but yes, this will take approximately 2 to 3 minutes to install all the packages. Remember, Microsoft Agent Framework is one centralized framework which is taking care of almost everything which is required for agentic development. So your Foundry SDK, your OpenAI SDK, your MCP tools, all these configurations are already part of Microsoft Agent Framework. And yes, your semantic kernel and autogen as well. You can check right now when I'm focusing on the downloading dependencies here, is actually downloading lot many packages. Hundreds of packages are actually getting downloaded here. So we have to wait for this to complete, and then our virtual lab environment is going to be ready once this is done. After that, we will be able to execute our application. Now, while the packages are installing, I can just focus on code. Now, this is my create new agent.py, which is basically my first Python code, which I'm going to execute. But in order to understand and in order to execute this thing, we have to connect this particular project with our Microsoft Foundry project. Now, let me go back to my Microsoft Foundry. And we know this thing here that we have two things. We have a model deployment name, which is GPT-4o, and we have overview tab in which we have Microsoft Foundry project endpoint. This endpoint is very important if you want to connect your Foundry project with your Visual Studio Code project. So I'm going to take this endpoint, I'm going to copy this from the overview tab of my Microsoft Foundry project, and then in the Visual Studio Code, I have to go into .env file. And this is having some environment variables here. The first one is project endpoint, in which I'm going to paste my project endpoint. My model deployment name, I have already given GPT-4o, so I don't need to change it actually, because this is the same name which I have used. If you have some other model, like if you are deploying GPT-4o mini, then I request you to please change it at this particular point. Also, there are some other environment variables which we are going to use in the second sample, not right now. So I have some variables which I'm just keeping empty right now. I do not want to do anything in that. I'll click on save, which is going to save the environment file, and this configuration is going to be used in our code. You can still check right now that my package installation is still going on. Now, when you are doing this thing, I want to make sure that you are not going to get any error in this. There are chances that because of some restrictions or because of some configurations of your computer, one of this command will not work for you. In that case, you have to fix that thing, and then only the sample application code is going to work. So just make sure you're going to take care of the dependencies first. Now, I'm going into this particular file, which is create a new agent.py. And let me show you the code step by step. This first sample is very important because a lot of code is going to be very similar and repeated in the coming samples as well. So just make sure you understand all of these things. First of all, on the top of this particular code, we are importing some references. I'm importing something which is first called async.io. Now, async.io is basically that particular library which is allowing you to execute this code asynchronously. If you have used Python or C#, we mostly focus on asynchronous development. Like in C#, we use async and await kind of a keyword, and in Python also we use those keywords. Now, async.io is basically going to allow me to execute my code asynchronously, and you can see at the bottom of this code file, I'm running my main function using async.io.run, which basically going to make sure that it's going to have a multi-thread parallel executions with this. Now, after this, let's check one thing, that our package installation is actually done. It's showing me some new release of pip is available. If I want to upgrade it, I can execute this command. But I'm okay with this. I think for this particular lab environment, pip version 24 onwards is going to be working fine. I have 25.1.1, so I'm okay with this. I don't need to upgrade this. In your case, if you have older than pip 24, then you should upgrade to the latest version. That's what I advise. Now, then next we have some classes which we have taken from different assemblies, like from AgentFramework, I'm taking chat agent. Again, I'm taking something which is AgentFramework.Azure, Azure AI Agent Client. This is going to be the most important class because this is the class which is actually allowing you to create your Azure AI agent. So basically your Microsoft Foundry agent will be created using this class. I'm also taking one particular class, which is Azure CLI credential, which is coming from Azure Identity, and that's going to help me to authenticate my request from this application to my Azure subscription. And finally, we have one more thing, which is Azure AI projects.aio. This is basically giving me a class which is AI project client. This allows me to connect with my Microsoft Foundry project, and then using that, I'll be able to create multiple agents inside that. So these four classes from these libraries are actually important, which we have added on the top. After this, I have a simple function which is load.NET env, which is allowing me to configure my environment variables with this. I am mentioning that I'm using this environment file, which is .env. So that's what I have mentioned. Suppose if you are changing the file name to something else, you can actually accordingly change it here in the file name as well. I am taking my value of the environment variables like project endpoint and model deployment name. These are the two variables which we saw we have created inside this, and we are trying to get the values of that in these two particular variables. And after this, my actual logic of the main function is going to start. The logic is very simple. Initially, I'm just printing some text, like this is an interactive demo to create an agent and chat, and then it's going to show me that create Microsoft Foundry agent. After this, we are trying to call a constructor of this class. Remember, whenever you call the constructor of the class, it's going to associate with some particular instance of that. This class, which is Azure CLI credential, is actually going to allow you to authenticate your request using your tenant ID, subscription ID, and additionally, you can also provide which kind of tenants are allowed. In my case, I'm not passing any of these optional parameters. I'm just initializing the class with the default constructor. And I'm going to store it in the instance, which is called credential. You can call it instance, or ultimately it's a variable. Now, once you have the credential, you can check this in the next line where I'm trying to create an instance of my AI project client. I'm just passing this credential inside that. Basically, using this authenticated identity, I will be able to authenticate myself inside this AI project client, in which we are passing the project endpoint, and the end of this is going to give me a project client instance. Same way, the project client instance is actually the one which is useful to call this function, which is project client.agents.create agent. This create agent is actually that predefined method which allows you to associate with your model, with what kind of a name you want to associate with agent, and what kind of instructions you want to associate with that. There are a couple of other parameters as well. If you want to pass on some tools or some tool resources with that, you will be able to do this thing, same like we have done in Microsoft Foundry samples. Now, right now, I'm just passing the model name, which is my model deployment. Name of the agent, I'm giving ST Agent Interactive for the skill tag. Instructions are, you are a helpful AI assistant, be concise and friendly. We can actually add a little bit more important kind of instructions right now, but I'm not focusing on very complex instructions, so it's just straightforward and simple. After this, I'm printing this that my agent is created with this new agent ID. Remember, this is that particular moment where your agent will be created and it will be visible on your Microsoft Foundry portal as well. If it is created, next thing which we are going to do is we want to use the agent for chat operations. And that's where I'm creating a chat client, which is basically created association with the instance, which is chat agent. In this, I'm creating Azure AI agent client. I'm passing my agent ID, which is nothing but the ID of this created agent, passing credential, project endpoint, and model deployment. This is going to initialize a new agent for me as a new agent, and that agent is going to do the interactive chat with my user. The below logic is very straightforward and simple. We just have a while loop, which is going to take care of the user input and the conversation between agent. And at the end of this, we are going to print the responses which we are getting from the agent, which I don't know how many will be there. So we are running a simple for loop. It's going to create some iterating variable called chunk in that run stream of the agent, and whatever input which user is providing and whatever response which agent is giving me is what which is going to be printed here. I just want to make sure that it's going to give me the responses here, and I'll be able to see that in the console application. So that's what simply we are doing here. This is a very simple agent, and I hope you understood the code of this. If any particular part of this code, if you do not understand, you can comment down that in this particular video, and I will reply with the proper answer with that. As of now, if my dependencies are installed, it's a time we have to do one important command, which is AZ logging. Now, I just want to kill my terminal for 1 minute, and then I'm going to again open that, because yes, I just want to make sure that we are in the correct directory, and then I'm going to do az login. Now remember, az login is actually that command which is allowing you to authenticate using Azure CLI. There are chances if you fire this command and it's showing you error that AZ is not identified or something like that, that means that your Azure CLI is not installed. You make sure you install that, and then only this is going to work. I'm hitting AZ login, which is going to ask me to sign in with my account. I'm choosing my account. I'm going to click on continue. It will authenticate myself, and if it is successfully authenticated, it's going to detect my tenant and my subscription ID. Let's see this. As you can see, it's detecting my multiple tenants and one of my subscription. I'm okay with the subscription. I'm going to choose this. So I'm just going to hit enter, and my subscription is selected. If that is done, I'm just going to clear this. So I'm going to do CLS. And now it's the time you have to run this application, which is as simple like this. You're going to do Python and then your file name. My file name is actually create new agent.py. I'm just going to hit enter. When I do this, it will execute my Python file. It's going to create an agent with this, and it's showing me that creating a new agent in Microsoft Foundry. It's showing me agent created with this particular ID, which is maybe started with WINHI, and now we're saying interactively you can chat with this. Now, before I do any chat here, I want to make sure whether my agent is successfully created or not. So I'm going to my Foundry portal. I'll click on agents. And here, if I check, I should have a new agent. You can see my skill tech agent interactive is successfully created. It's also showing me that agent ID, which was mentioned inside that. And this is successfully visible here. Now, if I go back to this and if I do some interaction, let's say I'm saying that, can you help me to find or maybe to plan a trip to Dubai? And let's see what response agent is actually giving me in this. It's a simple assistant, so it can give me answer of any particular questions. It's saying, of course, here is a quick plan for your Dubai trip. It's showing me multiple things in this: accommodations, transportation, experiences, and now I have to put some other prompt with that. But this interaction which I've done right now is going to be continuously happening. I'm just going to say thank you. And when I say thank you, agent is going to respond with something like, you're welcome. Let me know if you need anything else. Now, this whole interaction is actually happening right now. It's keeping this thing in the memory as well. And if you want to see that, that is something which is taken care by threads. So if I go to my threads in the Foundry portal, you'll get one thread which is created for this. And this is a thread which is basically keeping track of this. So you can see right now, every interaction which I'm doing right now is basically helping me to configure this thing. Now, in this particular one, it's not showing you the full thread configuration here, but yes, these threads are basically created and it's showing you the response associations with that. Normally, when you manage this thing, it's going to show you the agent creation, and then you can customize this with multiple tools and all, which is right now we are not doing actually. That is something which we'll do in the next step. So this is my simple agent. I've not done much configuration inside this for thread management. That's why it is not showing me in the threads details properly. But yes, this is working fine. The agent is created. Now, if the agent is created, the next step is sometimes we want to use an existing agent. Let's say this is my agent, which is agent 138, which is by default created. Now, let's say you do not want to create a new agent, but you have some agent which is already here and you want to just use that agent. Now, for understanding purpose, let's say I'm changing the name of this to Maruti Agent 138. Whatever name what the agent was there, I have changed that name. So this is now going to be a change name, which is Maruti Agent. This is my agent, which is just automatically got created. I have not done anything for this. But then this agent is actually having a unique agent ID associated with that. Now, because we created one agent through code, I'm also going to show you now that if you already have existing agent, how you can use that agent in your code. And that's why I need this agent ID. I'm going to copy this agent ID. I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code. This is something, this application is actually done. So I'm just going to hit quit and this execution is actually ended, which is fine. Now, I'm going back to my environment file where actually I have one property which is called Azure AI Agent ID. If you want to use existing agent, the ID of that agent, you have to paste it here. I'm just providing that agent ID, which is Maruti agent, which I have mentioned in that. And then I'm going to click on save. Now, where exactly I'm going to use this? Well, that I have done inside the second file, which is useExistingAgent.py. This particular file is actually showing you that this is another sample. It's in the same directory, so you don't need to execute these commands. You don't need to configure this actually right now. It's already there in the same directory. The code is very much similar. I have similar kind of namespaces which I have added. I have loaded the environment variables from this particular file. But this time, if you notice, I'm taking project endpoint and I'm also taking agent ID. This agent ID variable is actually going to have my unique agent ID, which I've copy pasted here. After this, I'm printing that agent ID and then I'm authenticating myself using Azure CLI credential. Those credentials I'm going to pass on into Azure AI Agent Client directly. This time I'm not using a class of a project client actually. Directly I'm using Azure AI Agent Client because I want to chat with this particular agent. And if that is done, the next thing which we are going to do is we are just going to print connected successfully, because using the existing agent ID is going to associate with that. And that's what this particular parameter is going to do. So remember, this is the same constructor which you're using right now. In that same constructor, you have an option here, agent ID. You have a parameter here which is called thread ID. And same way, you also have an association with your agent name configuration. So you can pass on this kind of details to associate with your existing agent. I'm using my agent ID, so I want to associate with the same existing agent, but it's going to create a new thread when I try to do the conversation with this agent. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just having a simple code with the while loop, which is exactly same which we have done in the previous one. It's just going to keep track of my interactions with this. Again, I'm not taking care of the thread here, but this is going to take care of the interaction. So let's just save this file and I'm going to run this time. So I'm going to say Python, and this file which is going to be used is going to be useExistingAgent.py. If I hit enter, it will run this. It will try to connect with my existing agent. So you can see it's showing me interactive chat. In this U, I'm just going to say hello agent. And when I say hello agent, it's going to respond. And it's saying, hello there, how can I assist you today? Now, which agent is this? If you check here, again, I can go back to my Foundry portal. I can refresh this. There is no new agent is going to be created. This is the same existing agent is going to be used. And if I click on my threads, I'll be able to see a new thread, which is basically having that interaction, hello agent, and how can I assist you today? This is my existing agent, but it's creating a new thread when I try to interact with this. And that's how this is working. So this is how we have configured our Microsoft Agent Framework specific agents. In this particular video, you understood how you can create a new agent and how you can associate with the existing agent. Also, how you can configure your lab environment with this kind of dependencies which we need to configure. Make sure you're able to run this thing, and then only you can proceed to 0.2, which we are going to cover in the next video. Now, if you enjoyed this kind of video and if you're liking this, I want to request you to please like our video, subscribe to our channel. There are only 6% people who have subscribed to our channel. This is free for you, but it's really going to help us if you subscribe to this channel. And if you found this video useful, you can share it with your friends. That's also going to encourage us very well. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow in another dose of Microsoft Agent Framework.